MicroStrategy, that is run by Michael Saylor, is going to become the most important company in the world. I said it. It's going to become the most important company in the world. And now everybody seems to be talking about Nvidia, Tesla, or whatever hot stock is in vogue, but they're not really understanding what is happening with MicroStrategy. And it is all happening right in front of our eyes, and people are missing it. This is going to become epic. And to really, truly understand what's going on, we have to take a few minutes to talk about money in general. You see, societies over thousands of years used different things for money. So some of the things that come to mind is gold, silver, even copper. People use cattle as money, rocks, seashells. In prisons, they use alcohol or cigarettes as money. And seashells were used as money when they were hard to find. In other words, it was very difficult to increase the supply of seashells. But then, when modern technology enabled people to import them and to catch them, they had to stop being used as money. And during the Industrial Revolution, when people were using metals, the obvious choice for money became gold, silver, and copper. And that's where the coins were born. The coins were used as money, but those coins actually had the actual metal behind them. So there were gold coins, silver coins, copper coins. But the problem is the governments and the bankers always want to steal from us, right? So what they ended up doing is that they started diluting the coins. Instead of putting the right amount of gold or silver or copper in them, they started putting less and less into them. And then so over time, they diluted the content, and then they destroyed or devalued those things as money. And of course, at some point, we started using paper as money. But at the beginning, there was something behind that paper. Money was backed by something. It was backed by gold, for example. And so there is this distinction between currency and money. You see, think of it as you're going to a party and it's winter, New Year's Eve, and you have a coat with you. And you want to take your coat and check it in and go and enjoy yourself. When you do that, when you check in your coat, what happens? You get this paper ticket with a number, and then that paper is then used to claim your coat, right? So think of the coat as money, something tangible, and think of the paper ticket as currency. So currency is the paper that gives you the right to money, which is tangible. That's how money used to be backed by gold. Gold was the coat, and then paper money was the ticket to access your gold. But again, governments, bankers, right? They want to get something for nothing. They want to steal from us. The government wants to always print more money, spend deficit spending, never balancing the budget, right? It's not enough for them to tax us to death. They want to steal more through debasement of currency. So what did they start doing? Well, how about this? How would people find out how much gold exactly we have in the vault? So we can have one piece of gold, and instead of having one paper ticket or $1 bill representing that gold, we can print two of them and people won't know, right? So then they ended up printing more paper currency than there was gold behind it, debasing the currency again. And then in 1971, they just said, screw it all. We're not going to have our money being backed by gold anymore. We're just going to run deficit spending, print as much of it as we want, And since 1971, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, the inflation or the debasement of currency just, accelerated. And then, of course, during the 2008 financial crisis, they printed all sorts of currency to fight the financial crisis. And that's when Bitcoin was born. Bitcoin was born as a solution to this constant debasement of currency. And now, after more than a decade of Bitcoin being in existence, more and more people are waking up to this and saying, you know what? We don't want your fiat money. We want something tangible, we want something hard, and we want something that you cannot print more of. Because again, there's only 21 million Bitcoins. That's it. You can't create anymore. You can't print it. That's Bitcoin. Bitcoin represents money and digital capital. And that's what MicroStrategy gets. That's what Michael Saylor understands. So with that being said, how does MicroStrategy become the most important and the most valuable company in the world? Here's what we have to understand. So this is the presentation that Michael Saylor used when he presented to Microsoft to adopt Bitcoin strategy, which, by the way, was rejected. So global wealth is distributed across a variety of assets, right? So capital wealth is put into various things to store value. 16 trillion in gold, 18 trillion in art. There is some cars and collectibles, equities. Equities is a, more than $100 trillion asset class, right? Real estate represents 330 trillion, and bonds represent 300 trillion, and money represents 120 trillion. Now, of course, Bitcoin is part of money, and it can also steal market share from the other categories. Currently, Bitcoin represents only 2 trillion out of 120 trillion in the money category. Now let's look at what MicroStrategy is doing. Look at this. Since 2021, look at how the holdings of MicroStrategy, Bitcoin holdings, increased. They used to own 125,000 Bitcoins. Then they increased it to 132. They increased it to 190. And as of today, they own 439,000 Bitcoins. Considering that there is a maximum of 21 million, currently they own more than 2% of the entire Bitcoin asset class. And that number was only about 0.5% in 2021. So in 4 years, they quadrupled their percentage in the entire Bitcoin. Now, put this in perspective, how monumental this is, because they're going to continue to do this. They announced a 42 billion capital plan over the next 2 years. In other words, they said that they're going to raise $42 billion over the next 3 years. They might increase it. To do what? To buy more Bitcoin and to increase the percentage of Bitcoin. Now, as I showed you the chart, that money represents 120 trillion of wealth. And Bitcoin now is a tiny portion of this. And Bitcoin is winning the race, because when it comes to money itself, what are the alternatives? Fiat currencies that are being debased every day. So the Bitcoin portion is growing the fastest in terms of the market share that it gets from the entire money category. And also, if you invest in real estate, bonds, collectibles, gold, which are the other categories, and you see Bitcoin outperforming every other asset class, aren't you going to think twice about, should I buy real estate, or maybe should I diversify my assets and put something in Bitcoin? So Bitcoin will not only take more market share from the money category, but Bitcoin itself is going to make the money category become bigger in comparison to the other asset classes. So the reason why MicroStrategy is going to become the most important company in the world is because of how much of the Bitcoin asset class they're going to end up owning. So if, for example, now they have 2% of Bitcoin and they're going to continue strategically diluting, in other words, right now the Bitcoin value per share for MicroStrategy stock is less than $200. Today, the stock is trading over $400. So in other words, the market is paying more than 2 times for their Bitcoin holdings. So Michael Saylor could literally sell the stock, overvalued stock, at $400, turn around and buy more Bitcoin for less than $100 of that share, right? And thus creating a Bitcoin yield and increasing the number of Bitcoins per share. And also because he's pulling the supply out of the Bitcoin ecosystem, he's creating his own success and increasing the price of Bitcoin. But not only this, the crazy part is that they're able to get convertible debt at 0% interest that converts at a higher price. So for example, this particular offering was a $3 billion offering at 0% that was convertible at over $600. So think about this. You're selling your shares at $600 and then the value of Bitcoin per share is less than 200. That's like an incredible value creation mechanism. And now you might say, why would people give him money at 0%? That's because whoever gives them money gets to have a call option. They get to convert at a particular price or have the right to buy the stock at, let's say, 600. And because MicroStrategy is such a volatile stock, because Bitcoin is a volatile stock, as you know, on options, the bigger the volatility and then the bigger the time to exercise it, the more valuable the call option. So the people that give him money, they can sell the convertible note asset in the private market because of the underlying volatility of the stock. So they don't care about 0% because they make money on the value of the call option caused by the volatility. So now imagine a scenario where MicroStrategy can take their Bitcoin holdings from 2% to 5% or crazy 10% over the next 10 years. And now the next question is, how big is the Bitcoin asset class is going to become in relation to the money asset class, but also stealing market share from the other asset classes like real estate, gold, collectibles. So how big can it get? Right now is $2 trillion and we have huge adoption. Run a scenario where Bitcoin can get a market cap of $10 trillion and MicroStrategy owns 5% of that. That's $500 billion. What if Bitcoin is going to get to 100 trillion market cap overall, what is 5 to 10% of that? Now we're talking $5 to $10 trillion. And MicroStrategy is acquiring it week after week. Do you see how MicroStrategy is going to become the most valuable and the most important company in the world? Because if you take something like NVIDIA, for example, it's just one of the stocks where MicroStrategy is going to own a significant percentage of this huge asset class that is just monumental. And because companies like Microsoft are too stupid to see that Bitcoin is becoming so important in our society, MicroStrategy is able to get Bitcoin on the cheap and increase its percentage of the overall asset class. If companies like Microsoft weren't this stupid, it would have been a lot harder for MicroStrategy to get that done because they would be competing for the same Bitcoin. And by the time these companies wake up to what is going on, MicroStrategy is already going to have 5% or more of this entire asset class. And you see, I used to be stupid too. I used to not understand Bitcoin. I used to be so against it because I was stuck in the past and I was listening to people like Peter Schiff, Warren Buffett, who cannot open up their mind and understand this. And a personal experience for me changed that. But also what changed it for me is one of the companies that I own stock in, LEEF Brands. Actually, today they announced that they're going to be raising money, $5 million, to initiate their Bitcoin strategy and put $5 million of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because when I visited this company, I visit all of the companies that I invest in. I was sitting in front of the CEO and he was telling me, what do you think about us putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet? And I was like, what are you talking about? And this is what made me start the process to study it. And this is what opened my eyes. So I suggest you seriously look at LEEF Brands because we have to support companies like this. I'm including 2 links in the description below. One is a video about like the business, why it's cheap and why it's going to do well. And then the second one is from today, which is an interview about their Bitcoin strategy and why it's right for their company. They know so much about Bitcoin, you're going to get blown away. But we need to support companies like this. So if it wasn't for LEEF Brands, you would never see me talk about Bitcoin. You would never see me talk about MicroStrategy. They open up my eyes. So therefore, I ask you to, I'm not asking you that you need to buy their stock. I'm asking you support companies like this. So take a look at those 2 videos and they might change your life. So anyway, in conclusion, I truly believe that as long as Bitcoins continue to take market share from the other asset classes, it becomes a better portion of the money category in where the wealth is stored. The price of Bitcoin is going to continue going up. And as long as MicroStrategy continues to increase the percentage of the entire Bitcoin and eventually get to, I don't know, 5% or 7 or whatever percentage of the entire Bitcoin asset class, MicroStrategy is going to become the most important and the most valuable company in the world, and not too many people are paying attention. Now, let me know what you think about what I just said.